A long time ago, in a village called Onolaja, there lived a little girl called Awero. Awero was not loved by her parents because of her loss of hair. They would go to the market to get things for her younger siblings and would even treat her like a slave in the house, even when she was the oldest. When she was younger, she fell very sick and gradually lost her hair. And by the time the sickness went away, she had become totally bald. No one wanted to be her friend because she didn't have any hair on her body. They saw her as an abomination, and even parents would severely warn their children not to talk or play with her. She was always crying and sad. Her parents didn't make it any better for her, as they would also treat her like she was their slave. Her younger siblings didn't like her. Everyone saw her as an eyesore. Awero, with all this, decided not to lose her self-esteem, and as they would send her and treat her badly, she would gladly do the work they sent her and go away. Awero was good at a lot of things. She was good at hand sewing. She would take pieces of clothes her parents weren't wearing again and make out clothes for herself. This was self-taught. When she was of age, she decided to gather money and buy materials to sew for people and herself. When her mother saw that she would sew clothes perfectly, she would buy clothing material and throw it in her room, saying, "I want you to sew these clothes for my children. Make them perfect, or else you will receive the beating of your life, you useless child." Sometimes when her mother brought clothes in pity, she would throw a few cowries at her to pay for her service. Sometimes she would give her free clothes. With this, she was able to gather money and start a business secretly. Awero also had a secret friend, Arewa. Arewa and Awero met one day when she was going to fetch water in the stream. That very day, Awero saw Arewa crying and sobbing that she was forced to go and meet her and ask what the problem was. Arewa was an orphan and stayed at her aunt and uncle's place. They were very nice to her, but sometimes she missed her parents. And when she did, she would always come to the edge of the stream to cry. From that day on, they became good friends. Arewa brought up the idea of selling the clothes Awero sewed, and she saw this was a good idea. When the money was complete, Awero gave Arewa the money so she could go and help her buy the materials, and Arewa happily went. She got the materials and took them to the stream where Awero loved sewing. One day, Arewa asked why the stream was her favorite spot to make clothes. Awero answered her saying, "This place is peaceful and quiet, unlike my house." The plan was for Arewa to go to the market to buy materials and go to the edge of the stream to wait for Awero. Awero was going to lie to her parents that she wanted to go and fetch water, but really she was going to meet Arewa to start sewing. Their plans worked, and they started making a lot of money. After Awero sewed the clothes, Arewa would go 2 villages away called Boripe to sell them, and everyone loved Awero's clothes. Their plans kept going for weeks and months. Awero even started planning to use part of the money to build a small hut for herself and Awero in Boripe so she could sell and make the clothes comfortable. They were eventually able to build a hut and start their own business. Her business was booming and no one knew knew the real person behind the popular clothes. The clothes had even started becoming popular in Onolaja, her village. One day, when her mother was home, she noticed that her daughter was always smiling and that she wasn't in the house when she got back from the farm. She asked Awero's younger brother to watch his sister for some days. He then began recounting how their mother instructed him to keep an eye on Awero for a week, and how furious she became upon learning about Awero's business. He told their mother all he had found. She was shocked and decided to teach her daughter a lesson. One day, when she was sure that Awero was not going to her shop, she bought oil and took it to Boripe, where Awero's shop was located, and burnt the shop. As the shop burned, Awero's mother laughed and said this would teach her a lesson that she can never be happy unless I accept it. The next day, Arewa went to the shop to start the day and sell clothes that had been sewn by Awero as usual, but was met with the most heartbreaking scene. She met a burnt hut. She was shattered and didn't know how to tell Awero. After sobbing and crying, she was eventually able to gather the courage and go to tell her friend. Their lifelong business and plan had been burnt by an unknown person. She ran to tell her friend this bad news. And as she told her, Awero fainted and did not wake up until after 3 days. The shock was too much. Not only had her business failed, but her life was ruined. Where would she start from? It wasn't like she could tell anyone what had happened. They decided to stop the business for 2 weeks so they could think of what to do next. Awero was sad and would always cry. She would cry at any given chance. Awero was known to have a hard skin when it came to being insulted, but at any given insult from the villagers or family, she would start crying and weeping. It became hard on her. This was the end of her dream. Even if she had little money to start again, what if the same thing happened another time? After 2 weeks of grief, she and Arewa had a meeting to lay low and not sell clothes for the meantime. They would meet at the edge of the stream to talk, and even if this was a bad thing, it gave them a chance to be free and to think of better ways to expand when they were ready. They had money in their bank account, so it was just a matter of time. They did their best to clean the hut and make it look better, but they didn't continue their business. Their mother was happy, thinking that she had successfully ruined her daughter's happiness. A month after this had happened, Awero had gotten past the incident and was just doing everything they sent her into the house. One day, her brother came to talk to her. Awero, I want to tell you something. Her brother had never come to her so politely like this before. And thinking about it before now, he was always avoiding her and trying his best not to have any direct conversation with her. She didn't think so much of it because she knew how they all treated her normally. But his coming to meet her this way made her very curious as to what he wanted to say. He then started telling her how their mother had told him to watch her for a week, and how their mother grew furious when she knew Awero had a business. Awero was once again heartbroken. And as she heard this, she ran out of the house. She ran and ran, and when she got to the stream, she started crying. She was shouting and crying at the top of her lungs. Why did their God give her to such kind of parent? Why couldn't she be happy with the little life she was living? She cried and cried. Arewa learned about this after Awero's brother told her what had happened. She couldn't say anything to her friend and just sat there looking at her friend as she cried. After hours of crying, Awero eventually stopped and told her friend that she was going to leave her parents' house. She told her that she had had enough of their maltreatment and she was ready to leave. She begged Arewa to help her pack her little belongings she had in their house, as she never wanted to see her family members again. Without saying a word, Arewa left to do what she asked, and before she came back, Arewa told her aunt and uncle everything that happened, and they were so sad. She told them that she and Awero were going to be staying in the hut at Boripe for a few days, even though she was sure Awero would never come back to this village. They bid her goodbye and even gave her a few foodstuffs before she left. They were good people. When she got to the stream, she saw Awero sleeping on the floor. This was when she also began crying. She felt sorry for her friend, and after trying so hard not to let what happened get to her, she found out the culprit was her mother. Awero eventually woke up and they proceeded to leave where they were. The walk to Boripe was quiet. The two of them had a lot of things on their mind. It was a great thing they had decided to clean the hut and make it better after it got burnt, because if they hadn't, it would have been hard to sleep there or even live there. They eventually got to the hut and arranged the place to look better. It wasn't so much space, but at least there was enough room for the two of them and their belongings. Awero, after arranging, made a space for herself to sleep and slept as soon as she lay on the wrapper she spread on the floor. Arewa knew what state her friend was in and decided not to say anything until her friend was ready to talk to her. She felt pity for her friend, and after arranging her things too, she also slept. They were free but very sad. The next morning, Arewa woke up a bit late and looked for Awero but didn't see her. Immediately she was scared. She thought her friend would have done something she could regret. She didn't even know what to think. She took the wrapper and decided to go out to look for her friend before she hurt herself or something else. But to her surprise, Awero was cooking just outside the hut. Arewa was surprised. Filled with concern for her friend, she asked softly, "Awero, are you alright?" Her friend told her she was fine and even added that she had forgiven her mother, but she never wanted to see her again in her life. She also told her friend that they should start their cloth business again, as there was no one to stop them or hold them back now. Arewa was happy to hear this. She had waited so long. Even though she couldn't sew beautiful clothes like her friend, her favorite thing to do was to buy materials and sell them when Awero was done making them. She also loved wearing clothes her friend made for her. After a few days, they started their business and it was going well. People were happy and their favorite clothes were back on the market, and everyone wanted to know who the maker was. Some people even started a rumor that it was a witch who was sewing clothes. They also added that they didn't know her because the witch was very ugly. No one really believed these rumors, but they were all curious. Awero and Arewa were happy. Sometimes Arewa would go back home to visit her uncle and aunt. She would spend a few days there and tell them everything that had happened before she went back to meet Awero. The two of them were happy. One day, a strange man came to meet Arawa to ask if she would tell him about the person behind the sewing of the clothes. According to him, the clothes were magical, but Arawa refused, adding that she couldn't tell him about the maker. But this man didn't stop meeting Arawa to ask her about the maker of the clothes. Arawa then decided to tell her friend after weeks of the man meeting and disturbing her. After thinking about it for a while, Awero told her friend to bring him to the hut to see her. The man then met up with Awero and told her that his owners would love to give her clothes to sew for them. He added that they loved her clothes and would love her to sew good quality clothes for them. Awero and Arawa were happy. The man also told them that his owners were ready to pay as much money as she wanted for her to make the best clothes for them. He told her they were rich people and should wear quality and unique clothes. Awero agreed to this. Before he left, he told them he was going to bring the first set of clothes the next day. The agreement was also that he would be bringing clothes for her to sew every week, which she agreed to. Awero and Arawa were happy that this was happening. It was exciting to see that important people recognized their clothes and were ready to trust them. The second day, as the man had said, he brought the material for Awero. He told her what his owners wanted and she got to work. She made sure the clothes she made were both different and beautiful. She made other clothes for sale in between, but she was more focused on making this person happy. She spent days and nights making these clothes beautiful and perfect. At the end of the week, this man came with a huge sum of money and he took the clothes that were already made to his owner. Awero was curious, but she decided not to ask too many questions so as not to chase this man and his owners away. This happened for weeks and months. She would sew clothes for the man, and after a week, he would come back to take them and pay her. She and Arawa were rich and they became the talk of the town. Awero began training little girls in the village too, and she even hired someone to help her make regular clothes she sold after 3 months of sewing for this man. He came one day and told her that his owners would love to meet her. She was happy but shocked at the same time. The man explained that his owners decided to keep their identity a secret because of how important they were. He then told her to take a week to think about meeting them or not. He also told her that if she decided not to meet them, she would continue sewing, but he would love for her to meet his owners. For that week, Awero and Arawa thought about who his owners could possibly be, and after so much thinking, they assumed that it could be some merchant that sells clothes and loves wearing good clothes. They also decided to go meet them. At the end of the week, the man came to meet them to take them to his owners. The journey lasted a whole day. They also traveled by horse. The man came with another person who rode another horse with Arawa, while Awero rode the horse with the man. They kept trying to figure out who exactly they were going to meet to be treated this well. When they got there, they were surprised. It turned out they had been sewing clothes for the queen of 2 villages from Boripe called Aderomu. When they got there, They were welcomed by the queen and her children with her clothes on them. The queen told her how much she loved her clothes and how long she had wanted to meet her. The queen could not stop talking about how much love she had for her clothes and even called her fingers magical fingers. She welcomed them to the palace and told them to feel at home. The queen Adesawa told her servants to prepare food for them to eat. As she took them to the room she had already prepared for them, they were short of words to say. Entering the room, they jumped and danced with excitement, signaling a profound change in their lives. When food was ready, the queen came with her daughters to eat with them. After they ate, the queen asked about their families so they could get to know them better. They both told them about their lives and how they started their business. They even told them how Awero's mother burned down the hut when they had just started. The queen felt so sorry for her and told her that she had an offer for the two of them. She proposed that they become the palace personal cloth maker, and told them she wasn't going to rush them, but she would give them 1 week to think about what they want. She also told them that she would provide a place for them to live, and she would also provide another place for them to work. She added that she also had servants ready to learn and work for them. They left and went back to the small hut to think about what to do with the queen's proposal. After the week ended, the man came back to get their answer. They told him they had agreed. The man went back to the palace to let the queen and her daughters know. The queen fulfilled all her promises and provided them with all they needed. Their lives were drastically changed after this, and everyone recognized Awero as the personal stylist of the Queen of Adenromu.
Please tell me, are you enjoying the story? If so, tell me, what lessons have you actually learned? I would really love to hear your comments in the comment section down below. And remember to support this channel. Please subscribe, like the video, comment, just say something. Even a word could literally mean a whole lot. So I want you to tell me, what lessons have you learned from this story? Trust me, these are situations that most people actually gone through. I'm sure some of you that are watching this story have actually gone through this situation. So I want to hear from you. I want to hear how you dealt with the situation that you were faced with.
Thank you all for your wonderful comments in our previous video. We highly appreciate you and do not take your support for granted. Special shout out to Tamika, Veronica, Israeli and Gretchen. Thank you for your engaging comments. Now go to the story.
A few months after Arawa and Awero moved fully into the queen's palace, the news of the queen's new and talented dressmaker traveled far and wide, even to Boripe, where Awero's parents and siblings live. When Awero's mother heard that her daughter, whom she had never tried to find after she ran away from home, had become wildly successful and important, she became furious and thought of many ways to lure Awero back home to do something harmful to her. For her first plan, Awero's mom sent Awero's younger sister to travel down to Aderumu and tell Awero to come back home because her father had fallen very sick and was close to death. Awero's younger sister was their mother's favorite child, and their mother always treated Awero's younger sister better than she treated Awero. Because Awero's younger sister was just like her mother, she hated Awero, and she hated that Awero had become so famous and successful while they were still poor and had nothing. She plotted with her mother to lure Awero back home and poison her to death. Unfortunately, Awero's younger sister didn't make it to Aderumu Palace because something horrible happened to her before she left Boripe. Before Awero's younger sister left their hut, Awero's mother gave her something to use on Awero just in case Awero refused to follow her home. The thing she had given to Awero's younger sister was a white powdery substance wrapped in dried plantain leaves. The instruction was for Awero's sister to keep the powdery substance in her clothing bag, not with the fruits or food she had carried in her basket. But because Awero's younger sister didn't listen attentively to her mother, she dropped the dried plantain leaves in her food basket next to her food and fruits, and the content of the leaf mistakenly poured onto some of the fruits she had in the basket. While on her journey, Awero's younger sister became so hungry that she took out an apple from her basket and ate it. Sadly, the apple she ate was one of the apples the white powdery substance had poured on, and she died instantly as a result of that. When the news of her daughter's demise reached Awero's mother, she ran to the scene to be sure of what she had heard. As soon as she saw her daughter's lifeless body lying on the ground while people gathered around her, she cried, and then blamed Awero for killing her sister. While all this happened, Arewa and Awero were still in the queen's palace and had no idea what had happened. Boripe was far from Aderumu, so there was no way the news could have reached Awero except someone from her village or one of her family members came to break the news to her. Also, it had been years since Awero saw her family last. And even though she did not admit it to Awero, Arewa missed her brothers and sisters. On some nights, Awero would lie on her bed, remembering all the beautiful memories she shared with her brothers and sisters. She would wish she could visit them or invite them to the palace, like Arewa occasionally invited her uncle and aunt. But whenever Awero remembered how her mother always treated her like a slave, how she would hit and verbally abuse her at the slightest provocation, and how she burned down her business, Awero swore she would never go back to visit her family. 2 weeks after Awero's mom buried Awero's younger sister, she packed her clothes without saying a word to anyone and traveled down to Aderumu to lure Awero back home. After traveling on foot for 3 days, Awero's mother got into the village of Aderumu, and with the help of kind strangers, she was able to locate the queen's palace. When Awero's mother arrived at the queen's palace, she told the palace guards that she was Awero's mother and that she had come to visit her daughter. The palace guards told the queen about Awero's mother, and as expected, the queen asked to see her. Already, Awero's mother had figured that the queen would ask to see her first before she got to see Awero, so she had everything planned. As soon as Awero's mom was led into the queen's throne room, she fell to the floor and began to cry to the queen. Awero's mom claimed she had been looking for Awero for years to beg for her forgiveness. She admitted that she had been cruel and wicked to Awero, which had been haunting her for years. So, as soon as she heard that Awero worked and lived in the palace, she traveled down to Aderumu to find her. When the queen saw how remorseful Awero's mom was and how she admitted that she had wronged her daughter, she ordered the guards to call Awero. Awero and Arewa were making dresses in their workroom when the guards specifically came to call Awero for the queen. Out of curiosity, Arewa followed Awero to the queen's throne room, and she was shocked to see Awero's mother sitting at the table with the queen. "Oh, my dearest daughter, forgive me for I have wronged you," Awero's mom cried loudly as soon as Awero walked into the queen's throne room. Not only that, Awero's mother ran to Awero and held her legs while sobbing uncontrollably. For a minute, Awero was totally confused, and she had a lot of questions running through her head. But because she had never seen her mother cry like that or apologize to her for wronging her, Awero became so emotional she began to cry too. She let out all the tears she had been holding inside for years, and she hugged her mother so tightly. "I forgive you, Mom. I forgive you," Awero said repeatedly as she hugged her mother. After Awero and her mother had settled their issues, the queen ordered a table to be made with the best food and drink so she could celebrate Awero and her mother's reunion. That evening, the queen and her daughters, Awero and her mom, and Arewa ate and drank to their satisfaction, and everyone was so happy. Later that night, Awero's mom was given a special room to sleep in while Awero and Arewa returned to their room. Awero was so happy and could not stop talking about her mother and everything that happened that day. It was almost like a new Awero had been born that day because Arewa had never seen her friend that excited. Even though Arewa was happy that Awero had finally reconciled with her mother, she couldn't help but feel that something was not right. Arewa thought of telling Awero to be careful with her mother until she was sure of her mother's intentions. But she couldn't do that because she didn't want to ruin her friend's happiness. The next day, Arewa woke up to the sound of Awero packing her bags, and she was so confused. "Where are you going to?" Arewa asked in a concerned voice. "I'm going to Boripe for a couple of days. My mother came to me this morning and she told me that my father is sick and is almost dying. Maybe if I get there on time, I can help him," Awero said. When Awero told Arewa she was returning to Boripe, Arewa became unsettled. Because of the reason Awero was going back to Boripe, Arewa could not stop her. Arewa felt like everything was happening so fast, and she badly wanted to tell Awero not to return to her village. To show her support, Arewa helped her friend pack her bag. After they met with the queen that morning, Awero and her mother set off to their village. That day, after Awero and her mother left, Arewa became restless and could not eat or sleep at night. She was so concerned for her friend, and her instincts kept telling her that something was wrong. Before Awero left the queen's palace, she promised Arewa that she would write to her once she arrived at Boripe, just to show that she had arrived safely. That was meant to be in 3 days. But when 3 days passed and Arewa did not receive a letter from her friend, she became very worried. Arewa knew Awero would not forget something like that, so she went to the queen to share her concerns. At first, the queen tried to dismiss Arewa's thoughts because she didn't think Awero's mom would hurt Awero after traveling such a distance to beg for her forgiveness. But when Arewa didn't stop persuading the queen was forced to listen to her. After sharing her concern with the queen, Arewa asked for the queen's permission to travel back to Boripe to check on Awero, and the queen agreed. Also, the queen assigned 5 guards to escort Awero to Boripe in case Awero was in trouble. That same day, Arewa and 5 of the queen's guards went to Boripe by horse, and they arrived the next day. When Arewa got to Boripe, she went straight to Awero's mother's hut, but no one was there. From what Arewa had seen, it looked like no one had been in the hut for days because it looked so unkept. So she decided to ask some of the neighbors about Awero's mom and siblings. It was when Arewa decided to ask the neighbors some questions that she found out that Awero's younger sister had died from poisoning 2 weeks earlier. Shortly after she died, Awero's father moved out of the house with Awero's siblings because he believed Awero's mom had a hand in his daughter's death. Since then, rumors had it that Awero's mother had moved to a hut close to the river, and people around the village claimed they had seen her walking around that area. Arewa thanked the neighbors for the information, and without wasting time, she and the queen's guards rushed to the river area to search for Awero's mother's hut. It didn't take long before Arewa and the guards found the hut Awero's mother lived in. The villagers were happy to point them towards the hut, but Awero's mom was not in her hut when they got there. Instead of leaving, one of the guards suggested that they search around the hut for any sign of Awero or her mother, and Arewa agreed. The guards searched around the hut, but there was no sign of Awero or her mother. Just as they were about to leave, one of the guards heard someone sneeze in the pig's pen just behind Awero's mother's hut, and he was forced to look inside the pen. To his greatest surprise, the guard found Awero with her eyes, mouth, hands and legs tied with clothes, and the worst was that Awero had passed out. As soon as the guard saw her, he screamed loudly for the other guards to come to the pen, and together they rescued Awero and untied her. Around the same time the guards found Awero in the pig's pen, Awero's mom returned from fetching water down the river. Immediately Awero's mom saw them. She broke her water pot and picked up the knife she had hidden inside, but the guards were able to stop her from attacking Awero. "No, don't stop me. Let me kill that good-for-nothing girl," Awero's mother screamed at the top of her voice, and this woke Awero. "You! Nothing good was meant to come out of you, you stupid child," Awero's mother said again. "Why, Mama?" Awero sobbed. "Why do you hate me so much?" she asked. "Because you took my shine. From the day you were born, everyone thinks the whole world revolves around you. Awero this, Awero that. You think you are better than all of us," her mother said. By this time, the neighbors and passers-by had begun to gather around Awero and her mother. But I was only a child," Awero said, sobbing. "A child that should have died in my womb. You remind me of everything I couldn't be, so the sight of you irritates me. Your sister was supposed to be the successful one, but you stole her shine too. You should have been the one that died, and not her. I gave her that poison specifically for you, but she died instead," Awero's mom said in a furious tone. The moment she said that, the villagers gasped in shock and began to murmur behind them. "Then why did you come for me?" Awero asked while struggling with her tears. "To kill you. It's because of you that my precious daughter died," her mother responded. The villagers who had gathered around them had spread the information that Awero's mom was responsible for the death of Awero's younger sister. So the village warriors were sent to arrest her and take her to the village cell for punishment. Despite everything Awero's mom had said to Awero, Awero couldn't stand the sight of the village warriors arresting her mother. She tried to stop them from taking her mother away, but she couldn't because they were stronger than her. After the warriors arrested Awero's mother, Arewa took her friend to a medicinal hut and cared for her. She knew her friend was in so much pain, so she didn't say anything to Awero until Awero was ready to talk. Later that evening, Arewa was trying to feed Awero when someone rushed into their hut. It was one of the village warriors, and he had come to tell Awero that her mother had committed suicide in the cell. From the white foam they had seen in her mouth, it was apparent she had died from poisoning. When Awero heard that, she kicked the food before her and jumped on the ground. She was heartbroken and could not stop shouting at the top of her lungs. The last thing Awero wanted to hear was the news of her mother's demise. She cried uncontrollably and kept yelling, "No, Mama, you can't leave me. Not like this." Arewa tried her best to keep her friend calm, but couldn't help her tears either. Thankfully, after hours of consoling her friend, she could keep her friend calm for that night and the nights that followed. A few days later, Awero organized a befitting burial for her mother, and that's when her father and her siblings showed up. Even though she was mourning her mother, Awero was very happy to see her siblings. After the burial, Awero returned to Aderumu with her father and siblings, and she introduced them to the queen. The good queen was kind enough to accommodate her family and even opened a business for Awero's father. After Awero returned to Aderumu, she never spoke of her mother again, and she begged her friend Arewa to never mention her mother again. Arewa understood her and promised never to mention her mother again because she knew the pain it brought Awero. That same year, Awero and Arewa married the man of their choice and lived happily ever after. Arewa and Awero's friendship remained forever, and the two women stood by each other's side until they grew old.
If you made it to the end of part 2 of this thrilling story, then all I can say is congratulations and thank you. These videos really take a lot of time to make, but you guys' support really keep me going. Comments below and share this video with your friends and family. Also, like and subscribe to the channel so that you'll be the first to be notified when I drop a new video.
In the bustling village of Aderumu, the sun rose lazily over the thatched roofs, bathing the bustling market in a warm, golden light. Awero, a young woman of 25, stood beside her best friend Arewa in their small but lively workshop. Together they created the most exquisite garments for the queen. Awero's bald head gleamed in the morning light, a symbol of resilience and inner strength. Despite the harsh comments from her parents about her boldness, she stood tall, embodying the grace and beauty of her creations. Arewa and Awero's life at the Queen's Palace had been filled with joy and purpose, but recent events had stirred painful memories and brought sorrow to the surface. The news of Awero's mother's unexpected arrival and her sister's untimely death weighed heavily on Awero's heart. With her mother gone and her family scattered, Awero felt the deep aches of grief and confusion. The constant mocking she endured from her parents about her hairless condition had left emotional scars that only time could heal. The queen, Noticing the sorrow in Awero's eyes, extended her kindness even further. She summoned her advisors and instructed them to assist Awero's family in settling into their new home within the palace grounds. A special house was built for Awero's father and siblings, ensuring they were comfortable and secure. Despite this generous act, Awero's heart remained heavy. She spent many nights awake, staring at the moonlit sky, reminiscing about her childhood and the tumultuous relationship with her mother, compounded by the relentless teasing about her appearance. Arewa, her faithful friend, never left her side, offering words of comfort and strength. One evening, as the two friends sat in the palace garden, Awero finally opened up about her mother. Arewa, she began, her voice barely above a whisper. I can't shake the feeling that I could have done something to change my mother's heart. Arewa, understanding the depth of her friend's pain, took her hand gently. Awero, your mother was tortured by her own demons. You did everything you could. Her actions were not your fault. Awero nodded, tears streaming down her face. I know, but it still hurts. The days turned into weeks, and slowly, life at the palace began to regain a sense of normalcy. The queen, ever observant, noticed Awero's talent and resilience. She decided to promote Awero and Arewa to higher positions within the palace, recognizing their loyalty and hard work. One morning, as the sun rose over Aderumu, the queen called Awero and Arewa to her chambers. I have a special task for both of you, she said with a warm smile. Our kingdom is organizing a grand festival, and I would like you two to oversee the preparations. Awero and Arewa exchanged excited glances. They had heard about the grand festival, a celebration that attracted people from far and wide. It was an opportunity for them to showcase their talents and bring joy to the kingdom. As they delved into the festival preparations, Awero found herself gradually healing. The vibrant colors, the music, and the laughter filled her days, pushing away the shadows of her past. Arewa, always by her side, ensured that every detail was perfect, and together they created a festival that would be remembered for years. On the day of the festival, the palace was transformed into a wonderland. People from neighboring villages arrived, dressed in their finest attire. The air was filled with the aroma of delicious food, and the sound of drums and flutes echoed through the palace grounds. The highlight of the festival was a grand fashion show where Awero and Arewa showcased their latest creations. The crowds gasped in awe as models walked down the runway, adorned in the most exquisite fabrics and designs. It was a testament to Awero's skill and creativity, and for the first time in a long while, she felt truly proud of herself. As the festival drew to a close, the queen called Awero and Arewa to the stage. These two remarkable women have not only brought beauty and joy to our kingdom, but have also shown incredible strength and resilience. Let us all celebrate them today, she announced. The crowd erupted in applause, and Awero felt a surge of emotion. She glanced at Arewa, who smiled at her, and in that moment, Awero knew she had found her true family. The festival marked a new beginning for Awero. She embraced her future with hope and determination, knowing she had the support of her dear friend Arawa and the Queen. Together, they continued to bring prosperity and happiness to the kingdom of Aderumu, their bond unbreakable and their spirit indomitable. Despite the beauty of their surrounding and the support of her dear friend Arawa, Awero was haunted by the ghostly presence of her mother. Every night, the same nightmare played out. Her mother's harsh words, the terrifying attempt on her life, and the dark shadow that seemed to chase her endlessly. These nightmares left Awero restless and afraid to close her eyes. One night, Awero awoke screaming, drenched in sweat. Arawa rushed to her side, holding her friend tightly as Awero trembled in fear. "It was her again, Arawa, my mother. She won't leave me alone." Arawa placed a comforting hand on her friend's shoulder. "We will find a way to banish these nightmares, Awero. You are not alone in this." Arawa knew they had to seek help. The next day, she took Awero to see the palace chief healer, a wise woman known for her knowledge of both herbs and spirits. The healer listened carefully to Awero's story and nodded gravely. "Your mother's spirit is restless, Awero. She harbors deep anger and resentment, which binds her to this world. We must perform a cleansing ritual to bring her peace." The healer informed them that they needed the help of a spiritual healer, someone who could communicate with spirits and guide them to the afterlife. The palace healer recommended an elder named Baba Ifa, who lived in the dense forest on the outskirts of Aderumu. Baba Ifa was known for his ability to exorcise malevolent spirits and bring peace to troubled souls. Determined to help her friend, Arawa decided to accompany Awero on the journey. That afternoon, after delivering a set of dresses to the palace, Arawa and Awero decided to visit the village elder, Baba Ifa. They gathered their supplies and, with the queen's permission, set off to find Baba Ifa. They walked through the dusty paths lined with ancient baobab trees until they reached Baba Ifa's humble abode. Baba Ifa welcomed them with a knowing smile, his eyes twinkling with wisdom. "What brings you to my home, dear ones?" he asked, motioning them to sit. Awero took a deep breath and explained her predicament. "Baba Ifa, my mother's spirit haunts my dreams. I cannot find peace." Baba Ifa nodded thoughtfully and agreed to help. The elder nodded thoughtfully. The spirits of the restless dead can be powerful, especially when bound by unresolved emotions. But there is a way to confront and release them. He instructed Awero to gather specific herbs from the forest, ones that would be used to create a protective charm. Arawa, ever supportive, volunteered to accompany her friend on this quest. Together, they ventured into the dense forest, their hearts united by the bond of friendship and determination. In the heart of the forest, they found the herbs as described by Baba Ifa. With each plant they collected, Awero felt a growing sense of hope. The forest, with its ancient trees and whispering leaves, seemed to offer its own silent support. Back at Baba Ifa's hut, the elder crafted a beautiful amulet infused with the essence of the herbs and the elder's powerful incantations. He placed it around Awero's neck, the charm warm against her skin. "This amulet will protect you, Awero," Baba Ifa said, his voice gentle but firm. "Wear it always, and remember that you have the strength within you to overcome your fears." That evening, under the light of the full moon, Baba Ifa prepared a sacred circle with herbs, candles, and symbols drawn on the earth. Awero stood at the corner of the circle, holding a small effigy representing her mother. Baba Ifa began chanting in a deep, resonant voice, calling upon the spirits and the ancestors. As the chant grew louder, Awero felt a chill in the air. Suddenly, a cold wind swirled around the circle, and the ghostly figure of her mother appeared, her face contorted with anger and pain. Awero trembled, but Baba Ifa's steady voice gave her strength. "Spirit of the departed, why do you torment your daughter?" Baba Ifa asked, his voice echoing through the forest. The spirit of Awero's mother wailed, her voice filled with bitterness. "She took everything from me, my joy, my pride. She must suffer as I have suffered." Awero, tears streaming down her face, stepped forward. "Mother, I am sorry for all the pain we caused each other. I forgive you, and I ask for your forgiveness. Find peace and let go of your anger." For a moment, the spirit seemed to hesitate. Then, Baba Ifa sprinkled a handful of sacred herbs into the fire, causing it to flare brightly. The spirit's form began to waver and dissolve, and with a final anguished cry, it vanished into the night. Awero felt a profound sense of relief and peace wash over her. Baba Ifa smiled gently. "Your mother's spirit has found peace. She will no longer haunt your dreams." The next morning, Awero and Arawa thanked Baba Ifa and returned to the palace. Awero's nightmares ceased, and she felt a sense of freedom and closure. Life in the palace returned to its joyful rhythm. Awero and Arawa continued to thrive, their friendship stronger than ever. They knew that no matter what challenges they faced, they could overcome them together. Weeks passed, and Awero gradually found herself returning to her old self. Her laughter once again echoed through the palace walls, and her creative energy seemed boundless. She and Arawa continued to work on their fashion designs, creating beautiful garments that caught the eye of everyone in the kingdom. One day, as Awero and Arawa were working in their workshop, a messenger arrived with a letter for Awero. The letter was from her father, who expressed his gratitude for the queen's kindness and informed Awero of the well-being of her siblings. He also mentioned that he had found work within the palace grounds thanks to the queen's generosity. Awero felt a surge of happiness and relief. She shared the letter with Arawa, who hugged her tightly. "I'm so happy for you, Awero. Your family is finally in a good place." With the weight of her past lifted, Awero threw herself into her work with renewed vigor. She and Arawa decided to organize a special event in honor of the queen, showcasing the beauty and diversity of Aderumu through fashion, music, and dance. The event would also serve as a celebration of unity and healing for the entire kingdom. The preparations for the event were extensive, but Awero and Arewa worked tirelessly. They collaborated with musicians, dancers, and artisans from different villages, bringing together a vibrant tapestry of talent. The palace buzzed with excitement as everyone looked forward to the grand celebration. On the day of the event, the palace grounds were transformed into a breathtaking spectacle. Colorful banners fluttered in the breeze, and the air was filled with the melodies of traditional instruments. The event began with a parade of dancers, their movements graceful and hypnotic. As the evening progressed, Awero and Arewa took the stage to present their latest fashion collection. The audience was captivated by the stunning designs, each piece telling a story of the kingdom's rich cultural heritage. The crowd's applause was thunderous, and in that moment, Awero realized that she had truly overcome her past. The journey had been long and painful, but with the support of her dear friend Arewa and the wisdom of Baba Ifa, she had found peace and purpose.
Thank you for watching this story. I hope you enjoy it. Do give it a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and turn on the notification bell button so you get notified every time we post new videos. Thank you.